Hello everyone, it's a beautiful Monday. Welcome to the special edition of Business Live. I am Sandra Esinam. The government is expected to complete a shareholding process that will open Neoplan Ghana Limited up for recapitalization. The cash-strapped company threatened to shut down operation in January following its inability of its majority shareholders, the Caddo Group, to continue funding its operations. In an exclusive interview to Joy Business, Director General of the State Interest and Governance Authority, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, revealed the government is ready to offset about 20% out of its 55% shares to pay the Caddo Group majority shareholders of the transport company. In this special edition of Business Live, my colleague Charles Aite engaged Stephen Asamoah Boateng on this development and other matters.
A 13.8 billion Ghana cedis lost to COVID-19. We're talking of government revenue shortfalls and the fact that about 19 state-owned enterprises are going to be losing close to about 2 billion Ghana cedis just in 2020 alone. Something is just not right. COVID-19 is really having an impact on government revenues and economies world over. We are much more concerned about state-owned enterprises, especially at this time when they've been asked to cut down their expenditure and even increase profitability. How do they balance in these uncertain times? Director General for the state-owned, State Interests and Governance Authority, the person of Stephen Asamoah Boateng, joins us to understand all the nitty-gritty that has to do with Ghana's enterprises and the way forward in these uncertain times. Mr. Asamoah Boateng, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, my brother. How are you?
Very well. So we've heard from the finance minister in the mid-year budget estimate 1.3 billion Ghana cedis lost. State-owned enterprises alone, about 19 of them. We don't know about the totality. Help me understand the state of Ghana's state enterprises in these COVID-19 times.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you, and also to explain to Ghanaians what my outfit is doing. Yes, indeed. From last year, we did projections, and looking at their performances over the last 3 years, we did project that the state-owned enterprises, especially the ones that had earmarked about 25 of them, could possibly and what estimated revenue flow or profit to us would have come to about 1.2 billion, about 200 million US dollars worth, which is about 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. We've been projected, but that was last year, and then March, COVID-19 came in, and they had to cut back in some of their operations and also their estimated profits that were projected for the year. And so from March, and the first quarter management accounts came in, you could see they were struggling. Don't forget, even the COVID before we got the lockdown in March. From February, we were picking up signals. So most of them were beginning to reactivate their plan B, which is redraw your budget and revise your programs and that kind of stuff.
But you haven't, as at now, helped us understand the exact amount, the benchmark when it comes to the capping of expenditure. To what percentage are SOEs expected to cut down the expenditure?
Well, we've been looking across board. About 30% cut down had happened, but we are just in the second quarter. We just finished the second quarter, so the management accounts are yet to come in. I've seen a couple, about 3 of them have come in, so we can't just use 3 to generalize. My belief is that by the third quarter we can give you a very firm figure as to how far they've cut back. But projecting from March, we projected about 30% cutback.
And is this going to include the slash of job, salaries, job cards? What exactly is the expenditure cut going to include?
Well, what it means is that some areas where there were bonuses awarded are going to suffer, where increases in salaries may also be affected. But in terms of job cuts, not really. I haven't had any of my SOEs coming back and projecting cuts in jobs. So that is luck for us. We're grateful to their way of prudently managing within the confines of what they are faced with. And so no job losses so far have picked up. But in terms of the bonuses and allowances, we're looking at cutting some of them back. It's just to be able to manage within our limited resources. You obviously picked up some of the information from GMPC, for instance, where they had a corporate social responsibility budget of about 55 million. Cedis now had to go down to about 35 million Ghana cedis. So obviously that means that some of the projects that they plan to undertake, then they go into the rural communities, putting up some schools, some community centers and hospitals, may have to cut back. But my information is that now we're getting easing of the restrictions. We may not see the third and the fourth quarter as bad as we think. We may come back to some level of respectable revenue flow and profit being generated in those two quarters left.
You talked about the GNPC, and over the past few months we've had interactions with some players within the sector, and they're concerned about the CSR in terms of the budgeting for CSR. Some say it's too huge, some say it's not the clear-cut direction of the GMPC. PIAC is even raising concerns about the focus that GMPC has when it comes to corporate social responsibility. Isn't that of a concern to you?
Not really. They've used it prudently over the years. I'm in constant touch with them, and the Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Keke Sapon, has managed their resources very well, especially in the face of exploration of new oil fields. You know, the Volta Basin had gone on, and some other areas of work was being done. I mean, there was no cutback on those areas. But when COVID hit, corporate social responsibility, it's something that the company themselves have undertaken. The board has agreed that they should do some work within the local community. It's not something that is compulsory and it has to be done because it's by law. But it's good to do good things in the community. It's part of effort to help central government. But once they realized the impact of COVID, they realistically came down from 55 to 35, which is still not bad. I mean, 35 million Ghana cedi. And I know they've already started some projects already. I saw a project in the north with one of the, I think Dominic Dua was commissioning a project in the north. So they are carrying on, and it's not as bad as we thought. And that shows that they are prudently managing their resources, which is good for me, and I commend them for that.
Speaking of PIAC, you know, in their recent report that was somewhere in June 2020, I just want to quote sections of it regarding GMPC. And it stated that the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, supplied $334 million worth of raw gas to, you know, the Ghana National Gas Company, but no payment was received. In respect to the supplies, this is largely an amount of VR's inability. So that's regarding debts. If you could move down to the SOEs, it says that irrespective of its indebtedness, GMPC continues to provide guarantees for a range of SOEs amounting to $645.5 million in 2019 alone. Now, this is about double compared with the previous years and also outweighs the corporation's total equity financing expenditure of $164 million for that particular period. It's quite clear that something definitely isn't that right with GNPC when it comes to its expenditure. I'm yet to get details of PIAC report. Yes, but from what I read, they were obviously sounding the alarm bells. But that was just when COVID has happened. It's not.
I think everybody panicked, so they were looking at what had happened in 2019 and thinking that you may not be able to cover 2020 with the same kind of level of expenditure. But don't forget that the part of GMPC's job is also to ensure that we have enough power supply. I mean, as part of the gas management, they must also make sure that they supply enough gas to our plants. And so and they have to guarantee some of it. You cannot just say that, well, let's cut back. So they cut back on the key elements of their work. And that would have affected all our power supply around the country. And for us to still go through this phase with no power cut, serious power cut, and doomsday is something of the past. Yes, you may look at the expenditure level, but it went to a good cause. And for me, I don't see anything. It's a service to the nation. And when GMPC has a work to do and they're doing it, yes, they have to back up other entities like GRIDCO, VRA, or ECG. It's part of their work. And we appreciate it, especially when we're enjoying electricity in our homes and our workplaces. So yes, they can quote the figures, but it's not raw. They have got raw figures, but you have to look at what the expenditure was used for. And you could see that it went into a just cause. To
that effect, PIAC is calling on Parliament to at least place some restrictions, if I could quote once again, on the proportion of GMPC's budget on CSI and guarantees to state institutions. Do you think this is a justified cause?
No, I don't agree with them, because you see, that had nothing to do with the CSR responsibility. And that's why even they also cut down on the CSR anyway. So JMPC had looked at it and they had taken a prudent approach. Now look, yes, we are supporting other entities, like I said, ECG, GRIDCO, VRA, but we can't do it as we did in 2019. So let's cut back on areas that are soft in terms of legally they are not obliged, but that is their corporate social responsibility, and that's the way to manage an entity. You have to do what is right, which is get the power on for industry to run and our homes to be powered. But then those areas that can wait, we just have to explain to the community. And in that respect, central government must step in. I mean, that is GMPC's own responsibility to support. But central government, through the Ministry of Water Resources, Forest and Sanitation, will do their part. Ministry of Local Government will do their part. So central government and the ministerial level also step in. So overall, you won't see any downward improvement or development. It will be the same. Of course, generally, you remember the beginning of the year, the nation's address talked about the year of the road. So there was a slowdown because of the COVID in the first when the movement was restricted. But we're back on, and the road infrastructure is going on well. So really, COVID has come in, but we've handled it so well that it's not really disrupted a lot of work of my entities and also central government's work.
Speaking of the work of your entities and the fact that they'd have to cut down on the expenditure, we had an economist somewhere in team raising concern about this particular move that you made, and he says that it will come along with some serious challenges for some of these SOEs who have weaned themselves off government's payroll.
Well, I haven't picked up any signal from those who have weaned themselves of serious financial constraints. I mean, you're talking about DVLA, for instance. We had the other ones who were trying to go FDA, Food and Drugs Authority, Ghana Standards Authority. We've had a discussion with Ghana Standards Authority and FDA to hold on a bit instead of wanting to wean off now, because it will affect, obviously, COVID will affect their revenue stream. And so they are okay with it. DVLA had already been weaned off. And don't forget, DVLA had also put in a lot of efficiency operations within the issuing of licensing and driver's license and vehicle license, and they are reaping in some revenue, so they are not really under threat. I haven't heard or spoken to the MD, the CEO, the Kwesi Busia, complaining at all. So I presume no news is good news for me. So no, the fear is not there. Master said COVID has come in, but because of the way we tackled it from the beginning, remember we shut down for a while and we had a lockdown, but the president in the beginning gave us all of the directions that, look, this is going to affect your business. So have a way to run the business even from homes. And so we had to rely on a lot of the online or virtual meetings. And so real activity never stopped. Operations was still going on. Most officers, CEOs, MDs were working from home and signing documents. And so it's the movement of personnel. And I remember even Ghana Gas, they had to move people to Atuabo and confine them so they don't have to come back and interact, so that COVID doesn't get into the workplace. And so operations in Ghana Gas carried on nicely. And I commend my CEOs. They've done a fantastic job because they really understood what was needed. So engineers were there. I remember even in the lockdown time, I had to get them, some of them, passes to move. When the military and the police were around and checking. And so the essential workers were all out there. And it's by God's grace that not a large number contracted the disease so far. So we are fine, and we thank God for that. We thought that COVID is going to disrupt everything for even a whole year. But so far, even ECG, that has the responsibility to give the free electricity to the baseline or the poverty line people, and also 50% to other consumers. Government is reinvesting them, and so they are back to normal. There are a few areas we have to look at the cash waterfall mechanism, where the revenue they collect, so that's the other area, the revenue coming in from our individual homes must come in. Some people are not, those who are so to pay the 50% are not paying, and those who have arrears must also clear their arrears. Because don't forget the mitigating reliefs came in around April, May, June, if you remember, and then President has extended it from July, August, September.
Exactly.
I think so. So those who owed before that or from last year must pay up, so that it makes up the difference. And so that's part of the job I have to do, to make sure everybody, the MDAs in particular, ministries, departments and agencies who are not paying must find a way to pay.
We started this year so strong when it comes to the SOEs. I mean, you was much more out there making sure that everyone was, had their, shoulders to the wheel. COVID-19 has hit. Is it going to relax the performance index that you have for most of these SOEs?
No, we can't relax, because in terms of work, they must have a target to hit. But I know, because we revised the project, the target, it will certainly come down. But we are negotiating with them. They've started coming in one by one. We're calling them in after doing the impact assessment, which they all supply their figures to us. They are coming in so we can renegotiate. But the third and the fourth quarter, we'll have to come back and sit down with them before we sign the next performance contract. The next performance contract, God willing, by December, we should start it for the year 2021, so that they have their target set. Hopefully by that time, we'll have some idea as to how to manage COVID and how to work around it, and how to also make sure we are not falling prey to the virus. If we do that and work keeps on us, I can see it now, we should recover very quickly in the year 2021.
Does that mean that the league table, if I could get that term well, it's really going to be published in July?
Well, I'm still preparing, although the targets may have shifted, but it will still be measured on the new targets that you've set. And so we are collecting the data. And I believe by the time we go for the next performance contract signing in December, we can publish which of the SOEs perform better than others, or which of the CEOs were on top, which one were bottom. They're all aware, and their finance directors are working, corporate affairs directors are working, and we are moving to get them to agree on the criteria we use, because we're going to give marks to certain measurements. For instance, their profitability, their liquidity, their revenue flow, and even their tax obligations. And we're even adding some areas where they have embarked on green effects, how they are taking care of the environment.
Sure.
Some criteria we are even talking to them is how they involve a lot more women in their top management positions. It's part of my gender balancing, which we are pushing down, and all those are criteria we use. Once we agree, then we can publish the table, hopefully by November, December.
There is still this perception of this corruption perception hovering around various SOEs. You have come out clearly. You've even threatened sacking, various CEOs and things based on most of these issues. It's still out there. It's much of a concern.
Not right now. Yes, it was. I mean, obviously, there was a bad image built by SOEs over the years, and it's because nobody was supervising them. So they did what they like, and nobody was checking. Now, the new law wouldn't allow it. Even to go and borrow, they have to come through SIGA for us to assess their performance, look at their financials, and look at what it is that the money is being used for. And then you give us a projection of payback. It's not easy for them. They have to justify with us. Cases like PBC, for instance, we drew them in here. We went through all the motions. Other companies are coming through. So it's not easy for them to be as they used to be anymore. But until I get any serious report, if I do, then of course we would sanction them. But what we're trying to do is rather bring them to understand that it's public service. It's not your business. So you got to look after the resources very well. And so far, with the team approach which I've used, we've created a chamber of CEOs. I think I've told you that before, or I said that before. The chamber of CEOs have a way to check each other. We have a peer review system. If we wait till a quarter, they would have committed the problem. The problem would have occurred before we correct it, and that would be difficult. The money's been spent already. But we check their budgets. You don't go beyond your budget. With COVID alone has even made them sit up again, because you are working with limited resources. So there's no room, there's no fat anywhere to cut, and they won't, because if we spot it, you are on the chopping line.
Wait, what's the state of Neoplan currently?
Neoplan, right now, myself and the Minister for Trade and Industry are talking to the Fadul company, a group who have been handling a Neoplan for a while. They are 45% shareholding, we are 55%, and they're looking at we diluting some to them, which we are open to that, because they've supported Neoplan all this while, and even a 55% ownership for over 10-something years, we have never bothered. And so government must step in. And so we are talking to see how we dilute the 20%. So what we've done is to commission a consultant to go in and do an assessment. And they've done evaluation for us. And so that would be based on the 20% we give them. There are other companies who are also coming on stream who also want government to dilute more. So really, your plan is going to look up rather than closure. Remember, at some point there was a threat of even closing the workers. Now I can tell you they are not. The Fadu group have been able to sustain the workers up to today. And once the discussion and the evaluation is agreed between all of us, hopefully by August, early or middle part of August, we should have a shareholding formula that makes it possible for recapitalization. And the Fadu group is prepared to recapitalize. Government to whatever percentage we are left with, we also put in our bit. So new plan should be up, especially when you have the automobile industry now picking up in Ghana with the VWs and others coming online, Kantanka coming online. We also want new plan. And they have a good base to start with. They got the Scania chassis to work with, and also the MAN diesel.
So we don't see any case of a privatization?
No, we won't privatize. But it's already joint venture anyway, so it can go. Government will still hold something in your plan. We still want government to hold a minimum of 15% or 20%. I think it's a good business for government to be in.
Tafsuma Airport Company Limited, what has been the update so far?
Well, I've been talking to the sector minister and also the board. There's a lot of discussion going on. Obviously, government has a policy to look at which areas they can invite private sector to come and partner government. The minister has a policy which has been accepted by government at a cabinet level to look at private sector participation. An investor had been identified. It's now come to us, and we have to look at it whether we're sticking with that particular investor or we open up for other investors.
Who is the investor?
Well, that's the Tafsuma, the Turkish group. So the minister and others are talking to them, but the board and myself have been looking at it and look at where the government strength lies, because it's not a weak company. Ghana Airport, until the COVID came, it was performing very well. So we are not at a weak position to just hand it over to one particular investor. They must also be prepared to compete if that's the case. our style of government is, or governance in terms of MPP, is to open up competition. So in terms of just one particular partner, I'm not sure that is where we want to go. But we are still talking, and the minister has put his case. He came to my office, and the board chair and myself are talking. So let's wait. And I can only assure the workers that we are not privatizing Ghana Airports Company. We're looking at some capitalization, but it is not just Kotoka, it's the other airports. Tamale is a key area we are looking at. Kumasi, we have to open up Kumasi very well. The airport is almost ready for international, in terms of the terminal building has been almost done. The runway is done. So we have the potential. Wow, I think we are looking at it, Takrady. So we need some capital injection. And if government hasn't got it and we want to open up, why not? But to be very transparent, and nobody will be muscled or workers will not be shut off. We will talk to them, we will engage them.
What's going to be the ratio of ownership?
We haven't even come to that yet, but I would imagine that what we will start with is maybe management. Is to get a good management in place. Government will still hold it. And if at some point we cannot find the money ourselves and we want to find a private sector participation, why not? We will do that and it will be open. And so that.
And that'll be all for our program this evening. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Stephen Asamoah Boateng. But that's how we end it. Log on to myjoyonline.com/business for more business news updates. But sorry.